Good evening, everybody. My name is Mario Diaz. Just to get started, tonight we're going to have a little presentation to talk about the FDOT 6th Avenue project. Now, just to kind of recap of where we've been and where we are right now, DOT moved forward with a project. And there's a lot of conversation. Sorry about that. Let me just. There's been a lot of conversation as to what is it that the village wants, what is it that the DOT and past administrations have talked about. And so what we're trying to recap here is based on the conversations that we've had. I had Calvin Giordano kind of help lead my discussions with DOT and taking a look at what this project is and what components can we work with. So joining us today is Giano. He will walk us through. Giano, do you want to kind of introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Giano Feoli. I'm Director of Landscape Urbanism and Design for Calvin Giordano and Associates. If you're not familiar with our firm, we are a multidisciplinary firm that does a lot of municipal consulting for a lot of the local municipalities. So we'll be helping out tonight with the presentation. Mario, do you want me to go ahead and start the presentation, or is there anything else you want to cover?
No, go right ahead and we'll get into it, and then we'll be able to to address any of the comments right after the presentation.
Great. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. We've prepared a presentation for you. I am accompanied as well by Javier Falcone. Javier Falcone is the Director of Transportation and Mobility for CGA. He has decades of experience working with municipalities in the transportation realm, as well as is very well versed in the processes that DOT uses with regards to different projects. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the goals for this workshop tonight is a three-pronged approach. First, we want to highlight the components of DOT's project, sort of put it into a sort of a good framework to understand where they're coming from. We want to have an opportunity to collect all the resident and commission feedback, as well as we want to have an open and frank discussion truly about the merits of the project. I know that different residents have expressed different concerns. I spent some time listening to the public outreach the DOT had done on their end, as well as I've been following some of the communications that have been going back and forth regarding the different components of the project. Essentially, what needs to happen is that the commission will need to vote via resolution at their next meeting to either deny or approve the project the DOT is presenting. One of the things that DOT has told us is that if the project does not get approved, then they will reallocate the funds elsewhere. Apparently, they had a budget shortfall, and they're looking to reallocate the money wherever they need to be for projects that are shovel ready. So a little bit about the Northeast 6th Avenue for those residents that are not fully aware of the project. According to DOT, the project stemmed from a request that originated from the village, where the village was asking for sidewalks and lighting to be installed along the corridor. And they cited that this dated back to 2018. I understand from the public outreach meeting that DOT had that one or maybe more commissioners had asked for proof of that documentation. I'm not familiar if that documentation was turned over. But from DOT's perspective, this project really fills the gap between North Miami and Miami Shores. And we're going to show you why that is. The previous administration had engaged with DOT to the point where DOT already has construction-ready plans based on the conversations and the coordination that they had done with your former administration. So DOT is pretty far down the road, and the design plans are pretty much almost at 100% completion. So they're at the point where, as I said, if the village decides to not pursue the project or to stop the project, then they will take that money and shift it over to another shovel-ready project. And then our goal for tonight is to show you as many pictures as possible as to what DOT is proposing. We recognize as urban designers that DOT's plans and diagrams are not the most understandable. So we went to great lengths to try to provide as much visual as possible for your benefit. Just from the timeline that DOT had shared with the community, this is a slide from the presentation that they had shown. If we look down at the bottom, you'll notice that they are right on schedule to start construction in November of 2021. Their goal would have been at that time to let the project in the summer in July. So between July and November, what they would do is that they will go through the contract negotiation of whatever bidders they're going to be using or contractors they're going to be using to build the project. So that's their sort of contract negotiation phase. Some of the issues that they had spoken about were issues of safety, sidewalks, maintenance of traffic, and sort of a hefty price of $400,000, just about, that the village would have to pay if the village wants an upgrade of the lights from the standard FDOT Cobra headlights that you see elsewhere in the corridor outside of the village. And we're going to cover some of these more in depth. So that was just a brief introduction. What I want to do is to spend a little bit of time. I know that you're all familiar with the corridor, but it's important to understand that this corridor is a major arterial that connects through the village to both Miami Shores and North Miami. So when we have to put ourselves in the mind frame of how DOT looks at these projects. We understand that as a community, you value the identity and the character of your community. You have a beautiful community with very few sidewalks, but lots of trees, lots of green space. And the character of this is going to change if the project gets implemented. But it's important to recognize that on the south side of the corridor, there are existing sidewalks and lighting. And on the north end of the corridor in North Miami, it's the same condition. They've got sidewalks, lighting, and sharrows. So when DOT looks at this segment of the corridor, they're looking at sort of 5 critical components. The first one is that they're looking that from their regional mobility plan, they're seeing that there is a discontinuous sidewalk that's not connecting from the Miami Shores point to the North Miami point. They mentioned that there was some outdated signage that needed to be upgraded. They also had concerns about visibility, particularly at the intersections and the conflicts with existing landscape that's there. Generally, what they look for is that when a person is at the driver's position in a car and they come to an intersection, that they have no visual obstruction to be able to see oncoming traffic. Then they have clear zone concerns. These are offsets from the edge of the right-of-way. That essentially what they want is that DOT has this requirement to have clear areas along the travel lanes, so that if a vehicle, for one reason or another, loses control say the person is distracted because they're driving and looking at their text messages or just not paying attention, that there's enough of a clearance so that they can correct the driving and realign themselves with the road without necessarily hitting a physical object. And there are some concerns that they had with existing landscape that's really close to the edge of the travel lane. And lastly, they mentioned that there's a discontinuous roadway illumination that isn't evenly distributed. And that's something that they wanted to fix as part of this project. So I want to sort of give you an overview. If you haven't had a chance to look at the DOT plans, we are going to give you an overview of what the project is. Particularly, the critical component is the installation of the sidewalks. They are going to be planning to install sidewalks on both sides of the road. That's both on the east and the west side. Portions of the right-of-way are currently unbuilt. So those are pervious swale areas that right now are either sod or landscaped. When they put those sidewalks there, they're essentially reducing the pervious area and increasing the impervious. So as a result of increasing the impervious, that is triggering the drainage improvements that they're providing within their plans. It's important to recognize that the drainage is as a result of the sidewalks. So what DOT has told us is that if the sidewalks are not going in, then there's no need for drainage. Based on their calculations, the landscape impervious swales that already exist should be able to handle the drainage. That's what they state. In addition to that, whatever damage or construction activities that they're going to be having within the roadway, they're only going to be milling and resurfacing those patches. They're not going to be milling and resurfacing the entire corridor. So that's important to also know. With regards to impacts to private property, there are two major physical impacts. The first one is the impact that the sidewalk is going to have with conflicts with existing driveways. Some of the property owners have sort of improved their driveways with stamped concrete, pavers, and other materials. And these are going to be essentially cut back until the edge of the right-of-way, where they're going to be installing the sidewalk. And then the second one is the impact to landscaping. And landscaping not only includes, there are some large shrub hedges that are there, but it's also going to impact trees. And I warn you that it's not only trees that are within the right-of-way, but also trees that are within proximity of the right-of-way. We all know that trees have root balls. So as they start to excavate, DOT may be impacting some of the existing trees that are within 5 to 10 feet of the property line. They do have a strategy where they put what's called a flexible pavement over the root ball of the existing tree roots in order to minimize the damage. But it's important to recognize that the construction activity may have some impact on existing tree roots of the larger trees that are there. They also mentioned they're going to update signs and provide speed feedback signs, particularly on the north and south extremes of the corridor and the improvement project. They're also providing some crosswalks only at the intersection with 113th Street in Griffin. That sort of it's like a 5-point intersection just north of the canal. That's the only place where they're going to be providing crosswalk improvements in order to facilitate a safer roadway crossing. And in terms of lighting, per the plans, the way that the plans were drafted by DOT, by their consultant, they right now show teardrop acorn lights that are an upgrade to their standard Cobra headlights. But that requires an upcharge of approximately $384,000 to be paid for by the village in order to purchase that upgrade. If you do not want to spend that money, then DOT will put in the standard light, which is their Cobra head, and I'll show you what that looks like now. So on the far left is the light pole that you currently have. We can see that the light pole right now, it's an acorn light pole. It has some character to it. It's more identifiable with the character of the village. The light pole, the diagram in the middle, is the light pole that DOT is proposing to bring into the corridor as the upgrade option. And I managed to get a picture of a similar fixture that I'll show you next. But the photograph on the far right is a picture of the standard Cobra head roadway illumination the DOT uses, which will be the standard that you will get if you do not fork over the $384,000 that they're asking for the upgrade. So I wanted to show you what that sort of teardrop buy-up would look like. So that's that picture that's in the center. As I said, DOT is only the FDOT Cobra head is not an upgrade. That's their standard, and that's the picture on the far right. Both lights are general area lights. DOT did mention in their public outreach that they had plans to put shields on the rear side of the lights to prevent spillage of the illumination into private property. And we have, if they do install those shields, then those shields tend to be rather effective. We use those shields whenever we do lighting along the beach shore in order to be able to meet turtle-friendly requirements where we cannot have light visible from the beach during the turtle nesting season. So these shields can be quite effective. So if you have concerns about the illumination of the light sort of spilling into your private property, there will be some ambient light that is bouncing off of the just general environment that bounces back. But DOT has guaranteed, or at least stated, that is their intent to provide shields to prevent as much back spillage of the illumination as possible. So that fixture, which is that teardrop acorn, which is an inverted acorn of what you have now, DOT stated that that was something that was coordinated very closely with your previous village manager, who my understanding was that he used to be the Public Works Director as well. So my understanding is that while his tenure of Public Works Director, he sort of led the conversation out through until the point that he became a village manager. So what we did was that we took a segment of the corridor, I believe it was from 115th Street up to 116th Street, and we looked at that one block segment to be able to diagram it, and we diagrammed it as closely as possible as we could to the DOT plans. So we're pretty confident that the graphics that we're going to be showing you today are very accurate because we did everything to scale. Essentially, what you have today is that DOT is going to be providing some intersection improvements along the east and west connecting roads, particularly with some crosswalk improvements there. They're going to be impacting some of the driveways with the improvements that they're doing. And they are trying to work around existing utility poles that right now run alongside the western edge of the corridor. And of course, we talked about the driveway extensions and the landscape encroachments. So when we look just overall, and we have more detailed images that will show you, when we look at the overall improvements, Again, they include the drainage improvements, which are only as a trigger brought in by the sidewalks. The intersection improvements that are going to be happening on the side streets, just to make sure that there's safe passage. They're going to be providing sidewalks with the truncated domes and the ADA warnings at every intersection. And they're going to be working around some of the existing utilities that are there. So this is what you have today, and we're going to focus in on this one intersection, 115th and 6th Avenue. This is looking north along 6th Avenue. So the cross street right here is 115th. And what you'll see that they're doing is that they are, so this is your existing conditions. And what they're doing is that they're bringing in the sidewalks, and you'll see the sidewalks come in on the far extents of the public right-of-way. They're building some curbs around some of the landscape areas. You'll see the patchwork of the asphalt that is being done, and wherever those patchworks are, it's because they're crossing the roadway with drainage, because they're going to be installing drainage in some of the swale areas that will be remaining. Then they're also going to have some relocated signage, and they're going to be pruning and cutting back some of the landscaping that currently is within the DOT right-of-way. If we look a little bit closer, particularly with the issue of milling and resurfacing, you'll notice that when the project is done, you're going to have a patchwork of asphalt because not all of it is going to be milled and resurfaced. With regards to pedestrian safety, this is your existing conditions. And when they put in the sidewalks, they're going to have those warning strips every time you have to cross a road. They're going to be striping the crosswalks on the north-south direction in order to ensure that there is continuous pedestrian safety moving along the length of the corridor. Specific to driveways, we know that those driveways are going to be impacted. If we go to the before picture, you'll notice that there is about a 10-foot gap between the property line, which is the right-of-way, and the edge of the travel lane. So those essentially are going to be 10-foot swaths of driveways are going to be impacted by the construction. And this is what the final result is going to look like. If we look a little bit closer as to what that does to the landscaping, the red line that you see is an approximate location of the edge of the right-of-way. And you'll see how those sidewalks come in. The sidewalks, DOT has pushed the sidewalks as far out of, as far away from the travel lanes and up against the property lines. It is important to note that between the sidewalks and the travel lane, there are no curb and gutter. So a vehicle has nothing to, there is no physical obstruction to stop a vehicle from veering off of the travel lane and potentially impacting a pedestrian. And this is very typical of low volume residential neighborhoods. My understanding from the feedback that I heard from the community during the public outreach with DOT, some residents had expressed severe concerns about safety and speeding along the corridor. One resident even said that a car had lost control and ended up in her yard as part of an accident. So it's important to know that you're going to have a green landscape swale, but you're not going to have any kind of barrier to protect the pedestrians that are there. This is another view of that same condition along the edge of the roadway and how that's going to impact the landscaping that will be there. So if there's any properties that are there that have landscape that extends all the way up to the edge of the travel lane, they're going to be, at least those first 10 feet are going to be impacted. We also think it's pretty important to recognize that that they're not proposing to shift or move any of the utility poles that already exist on the western side of the road. So this is your existing conditions. And when you look at the proposed, there are instances where the utility poles are actually almost smack in the center of the sidewalks. So that's why they're using 6-foot sidewalks so that they can have an opportunity to maneuver around some of the existing utilities and the light poles that they're proposing to put in. We wanted to cover, so those are the graphics of what DOT is proposing. We also wanted to cover with you and recap some of the comments that DOT gave. My understanding is that they got several questions from commission and from the residents. I listened to the meeting, and I will be frank, I think that many of the answers that you got were no answer answers. So it's important for us to be very frank about what it is that their current stand is based on the last conversations that we've had with DOT. As I said earlier, they stated that the project came at a request of the village. They also stated at that time that if the project was not wanted, it can be canceled. So that's an option that is available to the commission when the commission is ready to make that vote. Questions were asked if funding could be diverted from the sidewalks in order to eliminate the sidewalks and take that money and sort of put it in the bucket of what needed to be contributed to upgrade the lighting so that the village's contribution would be less. And DOT at the meeting, what they said to their response to the question was, we may consider it, we could consider it. However, at the last meeting that we had with DOT, the position that they have is that the reallocation of funds for the elimination of scope within the project is not an option that is available. There was a question that was asked about, well, actually, there were several questions that were asked, not only by commission, but also by many residents about the potential of reducing the number of travel lanes to have just a single travel lane going north and south. And that would allow for potentially a bike lane and larger swale areas. DOT at the time when the questions were asked during the public outreach, they gave you a pretty standard answer, which is that in order to be able to make that determination, that would require what they call a lane reduction study, which requires looking at traffic volumes and traffic circulations over sort of the impact area of the corridor. It's a pretty expensive proposition, and it's something that the village would have to pay in order to hope to get a consideration from DOT. However, when we understand the context of the corridor, being that it is a major connector through the village to get from North Miami to Miami Shores and vice versa, it's pretty clear to understand that the reality that DOT is going to entertain the reduction of a travel lane in both directions, it's just not a realistic proposition. And we pressed them for an answer when we had our meeting with them. And DOT's position was that at this time, a lane reduction is not a part of the project that they're even looking to consider. In addition to the public outreach that they had via, I think it was Zoom or digital, they also had some go-to meetings with some residents to be able to speak specifically to some of the encroachments that those individual properties had. So that is the extent of the conversations that have been had with DOT. And DOT's position currently is basically an all or nothing proposition. You either take the project as they've proposed it and as they've designed it, or they table the project and take the money and redivert it to another project within their 5-year work plan. So based on the conversations that we've had with them, the commission essentially has 2 basic decisions that need to be made. The first one is, will you accept the project as designed? And I know that there's been some conversation, and I've heard them through the public outreach about some potentials of sort of looking at the DOT project almost as if it were a Chinese menu where you can sub out different pieces. And it's important to recognize that if there's no sidewalks put in, then there's no drainage. If there's no drainage, there's no crosswalks, and there's no lighting. So essentially, no sidewalks equals no project. That's as fundamentally basic as DOT has put it for us. And the second question that the city, that the commission needs to consider is, will you be willing to pay the $384,000 upcharge to have these upgraded lights that DOT is proposing? So those are the 2 questions that are before the commission. The goal for tonight's workshop was to be able to sort of give you an update as to where DOT is on their stance, and of course, open it up for the public and the commission to be able to speak to this topic. So with that, I will end. Mario, do you want me to keep a certain screen up, or would you like me to stop sharing?
Let's stop sharing for right now, and we can always kind of come back to it as we get feedback and comments, or someone has a question. Before we get to public comments, what I'd like to do is at least introduce the commission that is with us today. We have all, if I see correctly, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have all 5 of our commission members here. Mayor O'Halpin, Commissioner Kennedy, Vice Mayor Gonzalez, Commissioner Hammelberg, and Commissioner Samaria. We will allow you to say some comments if you would like, but please remember, because this is going to a vote in front of you in May, you are restricted due to sunshine violation, so you're not allowed to give your opinion. Today, really what we're trying to do is listen to the community now that they've kind of gotten an update as to where DOT is with the village and what are the steps coming up. But would any of the commission like to say a few words? Commissioner Kennedy?
Yeah, I would. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for that presentation. That was very helpful. Mario, I know I cannot share my opinion on anything, and I really am here to listen to residents. May I ask some questions of Giano?
Sure. Okay,
and I will really do my best to keep any opinion, even inflection, out of these questions.
And Commissioner, just before you start, I'm asking, I'll do my best to answer your questions. Whatever answers I provide are going to be based on my analysis of the plans and whatever interactions we've had with DOT. Okay, so you answered a couple of my questions because you did clarify that some of the things they told us last time we met with them, they've now kind of done a 180 on us. So they're changing their mind on some of these things that they're willing to do for us and things they're willing to discuss. So you made that very clear, because they were clear about some things before, but apparently things are different now. So here are my questions. So the original request for this came from a single commissioner, and I'm just curious why they are now saying they'll act on a resolution from the commission, but they didn't act on a resolution from the commission when they initiated this process. They were willing to act on one commissioner's request then.
Commissioner Kennedy, I believe it's because of the conflicting information that they were receiving. First being said, we wanted the village, then the village wanted the project, and these were the things that we wanted. then being told, "Whoa, wait a minute, we don't really know if we want it or no, we don't want it." And so because they've gotten mixed signals, they want a clear signal from the village. Do you want it or do you not want it? We need to know.
I understand that they want a clear signal now. It's interesting to me that they didn't need a clear signal before, but let me ask some other more specific questions here. The initial request was for crosswalks across 6th Avenue, Giano. What has made them determine that crosswalks east-west across 6th Avenue are not required anywhere except at 113th Street?
Commissioner, I can only speak to what the DOT designer responded to a very similar question during the public outreach. And the rationale that they use is that in order to be able to provide crosswalks, and this is sort of a general standard, whenever you're going to provide crosswalks across a travel lane, you have to have some kind of traffic control device to ensure the safety of pedestrians being able to cross the roadway. In this circumstance, you don't have any signalized intersections, and you don't have any mid-block crosswalks proposed. DOT has installed some mid-block crosswalks in other urban areas of the county, particularly if you move further south and look at places like Coraway. They have signalized mid-block crosswalks where they have push buttons with flashing signs and signage that sort of instructs the drivers to stop and yield to pedestrians. You don't have any of that infrastructure in place right now. The only place where you can cross right now is at the intersections with the roads. There was a statement that I found pretty odd from DOT when they said that there are historic medians in the road and that's the reason why they were not touching those medians. I'm not 100% certain as to what the cultural assessment is of those medians that sort of designates them as historic. But that's the rationale that I would put forward as to why they have not put crosswalks across 6th Avenue. And it's probably because there is concerns about safety and there's no mechanism by which they can control the traffic to ensure the safe crossings of pedestrians.
Well, then wouldn't it stand to reason that if they deem it necessary to put, and I'm just trying to rationalize this myself, if they deem it necessary to put sidewalks in for people who are walking, those people may need to cross the street as well, and that would require a crosswalk. And wouldn't that then automatically trigger whatever words you just used to indicate a stoplight or something to stop traffic to make it safe? So if it's so important to have opportunity for people to walk along 6th Avenue, why aren't they stopping traffic so they can put crosswalks in?
If I can answer that question, Gianna. Good evening, all. This is Javier Falcone. I just want to add to what Gianna mentioned before. I came across as background information for this project. The DOT did a study, actually 2 studies, one for pedestrian safety for the crosswalk, both on 6th Avenue and 115th and 119th, and then another study for a signal warrant at 6th Avenue and 119th. All of the studies came out with basically no warranted. So they said no warrants for the crosswalks and no warrants for the signal. So the pedestrian safety study was completed in June 2014 at the request of the village then, the same as the signal warrant, but that was done in February 2018. So that's what they're basing their conclusion for what Gianna was talking about.
So then what, okay, so there are studies that indicate that we don't need crosswalks. Not enough people are crossing. I would also think that maybe they're not crossing because there's not a safe way to cross. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg kind of a thing.
Exactly.
But, so what study are they pointing to that indicates that sidewalks will be used?
Well, I think that's more of a policy that comes from DOT. DOT has a policy now that everything they build nowadays has to accommodate all modes of transportation. That includes peds, bikes, transit. So that's what they're hanging their hat on today.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks. I have a couple of other things and I'll try to make them quick. So Gianna, you talked about some signs that we have outdated that we have outdated signage, but that seems to be completely unrelated to this project. So that's something they're just going to do while they're working on the project.
Correct, Commissioner. Whenever they do an upgrade of any sort of roadway, they need to make sure that the signage is consistent with the current standards. And that's in placement, letter size, signalization, and all that good stuff. So this is a requirement.
Get it up to current code. Well, it seems to me that that's completely unrelated to the project. So if there are road signs that we don't have that don't meet current code, shouldn't they be doing that anyway? So if we said no to this project, I would hope that they would still come in and make our signs up to date.
We would hope. I would suggest that maybe the village can make that request if you do say no.
Okay, very good. Okay, regarding the drains. So I understand that they're saying that sidewalks are adding concrete, impervious concrete to the village. Water can't go down, and that's triggering the need for drains. I calculated 20,000 square feet of concrete will be added to the village. That's my math, so no one hold me or FDOT to that, please. I did some quick calculations. But so they're saying, let's call it 20,000 square feet of concrete added will necessitate more drains, and that without the sidewalks, the drains aren't necessary. But we have flooding on 6th Avenue now. So we do have flooding. So their rationale that sidewalks create flooding, require drains, doesn't seem to hold water, if you will. Just kind of came up with that pun on the spot, because we do have flooding. And the flooding on that road is their responsibility. So if we say no to this, what is their plan to address the flooding on 6th Avenue and on the side streets where it comes off of 6th Avenue, which is their responsibility? Because the fact remains is we flood now and we don't have sidewalks. So they can't say sidewalks are causing the floods. It's flooding now without sidewalks. So what are they going to do if we say no to this project?
Commissioner, I'll be frank with you. They have no plans for drainage improvements.
Are they responsible for floods on that street if they choose to not put drains in? I mean, is that their responsibility to make sure that street doesn't flood? It's their street, right?
Javier, with your experience with DOT, I mean, are they responsible for handling all the drainage within their right of way?
Yes, they are. I know that from my experience in the Miami Beach with Alton Road, which is state highway, they pretty much built in that into the project. So technically they do, but I don't know what's going on with this project. So I don't know what they're saying no to them.
According to what the design engineer said during the public outreach, they stated that based on their analysis, that no drainage improvements were warranted without the installation of the sidewalks. But we haven't seen those analyses. We have been limited to only the plans that have been issued and the previous studies. What I would recommend is that if you do decide as a commission to deny the project, that you have a follow-up with DOT and you document some of the flooding that's there and build a case to demonstrate, because I'm not sure based on what data their design engineer based their findings.
And Xavier, they're also responsible for maintaining all of those drains on 6th Avenue, correct? Those are their drains. They're responsible for everything related to those drains.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me ask a couple of more things here, and I'll move on. Let some other people talk. So now I understand for the first time why they're speccing 6-foot wide sidewalks, Giano. If they said that before, that is because of those poles. I missed it, but I think that's the first time I heard it tonight. But it is, so it is clear to everyone who just heard you speak that there are no curbs, and that would be the minimal kind of thing that would protect the pedestrian who was walking on that sidewalk anyway. So basically, there's nothing here that would protect anyone on those sidewalks. If we went forward with the project, would there be the ability for us to request some kind of a safety barrier in the right of way, in the swale area, to protect a guardrail, let's say, to protect people in the sidewalks?
It is not part of their project. And based on their calculations, And based on the posted speed limit and the design speed limit that they've used, I think that they've made the calculation that there's enough that sort of landscape green strip that exists and it's going to remain between the sidewalk and the travel lane to allow a driver to correct and recuperate back onto the travel lane.
So they think that 4 feet of green space, 4 feet of grass is enough for someone to correct before they hit someone in the sidewalk?
Commissioner, as I said, that is a typical condition that you find in residential areas that have a very low volume of traffic.
Is this a residential area that has a low volume of traffic?
I will tell you that I have concerns about that narrow strip, because I don't think that somebody, if they're speeding along the corridor and they lose control, it's going to be more than 4 feet before they correct their.
Well, I'm no engineer, but I would think that if you're traveling the speed limit, maximum speed limit of 30 miles an hour, I don't know what fraction of a second you would cross 4 feet before you hit someone if you didn't apply your brakes. Yeah. And I would think it would be much less than a second before you'd be in that sidewalk. I'll let the engineers address that, but
yeah, I will say that
if the sidewalk's going to be there, you know, maybe it's something we could talk to them about. Okay,
trying to comment. Can we maybe allow someone to kind of circle back if we don't get to any of the questions?
Well, I have a couple of things and then I'll be done, unless I want to do follow up to something someone else said. Something else that you said, Gianno, that we heard for the first time is that there will be landscaping impact beyond the 10-foot line because some of those trees that are planted on private property will be impacted by the construction as well. So that's the first time we've heard that, if I heard you correctly.
Correct. So my statement was that if the tree trunks are near the property line, then that means that the existing critical root zone of the trees are within the public right of way.
Gotcha.
And when they build the sidewalks, they're going to have to excavate a minimum of 6 to 8 inches in order to be able to build the sub base and form the the sidewalk. So some of those critical root zones of those trees are going to be impacted. And generally, a lot of the engineers don't consider these. You know, they don't necessarily understand that as big of a canopy as a tree may have, that's generally the extent of the root ball. But particularly when it comes to the critical root zone, as a landscape architect, I think that that's something that we recognize is going to be an impact to existing landscaping.
Okay, very good. Do we have the ability to, in that 4-foot green space between the road surface and the sidewalk, will we have the ability to plant trees in there to create any kind of a canopy over the roadway or the sidewalks?
No, you will not be able to provide any trees there because of what's considered the clear zone requirements, right?
Understood. Okay.
Now, what some municipalities have done, is that they have been able to get away with putting in Alexander palms, only because they have a very small caliper,
right? And
they're considered breakaway,
right?
But they only operate from a visual perspective standpoint. They don't provide any kind of physical
shade
barrier or shade.
There's no shade. Correct. There's no shade. Okay, last question. I think we saw something tonight for the first time, and I want to know when this happened. I'm very certain this is the first time we saw the original plan they showed us. Sidewalks stopped at driveways, so no one's driveway would be impacted. In other words, if there's a driveway in place, the sidewalk came up to it, stopped at the driveway, picked up on the other side of the driveway, and continued on its way. But what you just showed us is at the 10-foot line, the driveway is cut off, so the sidewalk continues unbroken with concrete between the sidewalk and the road. In other words, everyone's driveways will be removed from the 10-foot line out to the street and replaced with concrete. Is that correct?
Not 100%, Commissioner. They have, and I don't know what the rationale is, but some driveways are remaining in place and some driveways are being impacted. My supposition is that it probably has something to do with the pitch of the road to make sure that they're pitching those portions of the driveway towards the center of the road so that they can hold, so that they're not draining into private property. But the full rationale as to why they chose to impact some driveways and not others, I have no idea why they
So in
made.
other words, we're going to have when you look down the length of these 8 blocks of our village, there will be an inconsistent design. So it's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be both randomly all over the street.
That is correct, Commissioner.
You know,
Okay.
one of the things that I can think of, Commissioner, just off the top of my head, is that when you have a driveway that meets certain profile, and that profile sort of meets the sidewalk at the same time, those are the ones you won't have an impact on the, the crosswalk crossing the driveway.
Mhm.
The other ones that have the profile in a different fashion when they meet the sidewalk is when you may have some adjustments. So that's the rationale I can think of.
Okay, so then related question, just in the interest of aesthetics and having a consistent look down the entire street, could we, if we ask for sidewalks, request that they do it consistently everywhere so at least things match the length of the street?
Commissioner, I would, based on our conversations with DOT, I think that they would see that as an upcharge. Because according to what they have designed, they have a buildable project as it is.
Okay.
So these may be considered as additional asks by the village.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to require additional design from their design engineer, and they may very well ask you for a bigger contribution towards the project.
Okay, so they didn't clear that with us before. They didn't make that clear before, so now they'll charge us for it, you think maybe?
I don't know.
Okay, and then, so I just thought of one other thing that we saw for the first time, and then Mario, I promise I am done. This is the first time we heard about the patches on the asphalt. Before they said the road surface would not be touched at all, but now we're going to have a patchwork quilt effect going down 6th Avenue from what you're telling us.
And that is a function of the fact that they need to
Put drains in.
put the drains in and
Connect them.
Right, and impact the driveways. I mean, the travel.
The roads, right. So, because they had not told us that before, so I'm pretty certain that's the first time we're hearing. So we'll be left with a patchwork effect down the street and down the driveways as well.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
No, and that's why we went to great lengths to document it as accurately as we could, and based on the plan, so that you could be aware as to what the project.
Okay, well, let me just end here by saying, Mario, thank you for bringing these folks into the equation, and that you guys did a really nice job for us, and you certainly painted a more accurate picture of what we'll be left with at the end of this project. So I'm really glad you're on our side on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mario, I have 3 questions, but I'm going to wait for the residents to speak because I'm sure they're going to bring it up. So if they don't, then I'll ask at the end, okay?
Okay, not a problem. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other commissioners before we go? If not, I'd like to ask our residents to comment, but if we can hear from those on 6th Avenue first.
Mario, Commissioner Hammerberg is signing up that she wants to speak. I'm sorry. Are you ready? Okay.
Yes, thank you. I really want to thank you guys for giving us a clear, concise picture of what this project was proposed to be. We never really got all those details, and I really, really want to thank you because I'd rather make a decision from education than from half-baked promises. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Samaria?
Yes, I want to thank the city manager for bringing this together. I believe that I'm glad that you guys brought this up because I believe we were misled about what they were going to do and what they were not going to do. So I'm glad we got that cleared up today. And I definitely like to hear from the residents on what they have to say.
Mayor?
Yes, I'd like to hear from the residents and their opinion. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I have 2 hands up. I'll go. I have first a Mr. Hans Mueller. Can you please identify yourself and your address, please?
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to address my commentary. Number one, my name is Hans Mueller. I live at 1007 Northeast 115 Street. Obviously, a bit away from 6th Avenue. I've lived in Biscayne Park since I was very young. So I'm very well aware of the flooding issues and the challenges related to 6th Avenue. I was also active on the previous board that was involved in this. A continuation of that board is represented tonight. And it was decided to bring these professionals in to consult because this project was getting out of hand and we didn't feel that we had a good handle on it. So my question to our professionals that we have retained, based on your observations, based on your knowledge of the current flooding issue, which is the greatest challenge for those property owners on 6th Avenue, is it your recommendation that we proceed with this project or that we scrap it? And if we were to scrap it based on your experience, when do you think the next time that we might possibly, or do you give us an estimate of when we might possibly get back up to bat with a project that would be palatable to everyone involved?
So, Mr. Mueller,
those are my questions. Those are my questions. I'll sign off at that point.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Although I'm the city manager here, I've spent over about 10 years with the Transportation Authority in the county and working with DOT. So I'm intimately involved with understanding their not only their budgeting, but the processes that they take. And I think working with Calvin Giordano, Xavier, and Giano, they've really even furthered that education. I would tell you that from a DOT standard, the project in itself, in an isolation, is a good project. Does it fit our village? That's a different question.
Yeah.
And what we want, that's a different question. And I don't know that is the need of the village at the moment. With regards to your second question, when is the next time that DOT might be willing to do something? You know, DOT will tell you that they're always willing to work with the municipalities into getting good and safe projects out to better the community. Understanding their budgeting, the way that their projects and the timelines that they take, if they remove this from their budgeting and they move this project back, it will probably be moved back to the year 4 or 5 of their work program, which realistically, without talking all the legalese or the political answers, means it's an unfunded project and who knows when that's going to come back. If they had to start from scratch and do this all over between doing design and then letting for construction, you could be talking anywhere between, and I'll be conservative, between 5 to 15 years between you actually get shovels on the ground again. And I'm being generous on the 5 side because maybe they get motivated, but they're currently facing a $2 billion shortfall when it comes to funding. And I don't think that they're going to make that up by just moving a $2.5 million project. So by the time this project would come back, we're talking many years out. And I think that's a safe estimation. Giano, Xavier, you guys want to elaborate or change or anything that I've said?
No, Mr. Manager, what I would add is that I want to remind you that the way the DOT described the project, they described the project as if it came about at the request of the village, not at the initiation of the department. So having said that, it may be that this roadway is not in their looking glass for any kind of improvements within the short-term period. So I would agree with the manager in that it may be, I want to say a decade before you really start to see sort of this project being revisited. Specific to the question that you asked me, Mr. Mueller, as as the professional in terms of recommending. I'll be honest with you, I'm not necessarily prepared to make a recommendation because I think that the purpose for tonight is to find out where the residents are. There are some serious concerns that the residents have about the look and feel of the community and how this is going to change the character of that roadway. There are some valid concerns about the inconsistencies of the different patchwork components of the project, be they the sidewalk or the asphalt. There's concerns about the drainage, and the drainage is, as DOT said, the drainage is only going in to make up for the impact of the sidewalks. If there is existing drainage that is a problem right now, they are not providing solutions to that drainage. They're only providing drainage infrastructure to be able to handle the addition of the impervious areas based on the sidewalk. So it's a sort of very limited, very focused scope that they're putting in.
I just want, I'm sorry, I just want to add that, you know, there is the funding mechanism is very complicated. And like both the village manager and Janet point out, it's not as simple as saying, you know, today we don't want this and then maybe we can come back next year. It doesn't happen that way because it has to go through a process, and the process involves the transportation plan organization, Miami-Dade, and the communities that are, you know, within the county and all of that. So the program that the FDOT puts is called the work program, and that goes through extensive reviews. So they review that every couple of years, but then projects get shuffled. And with this COVID situation that we have, you know, a lot of their work program has suffered. So it's shrunk in budget and funding. So they're going to have to reprioritize the projects they already have. And then, you know, you never know what these projects will land. So that's probably the reality of it.
Thank you. Next, I have a Miss Davis. I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I live on 6th Avenue. I've lived on 6th Avenue for more than 27 years. And I'm going to try to be really brief. This is a really, really hot button project for me. I'm really worked up and upset about this. But I want to clarify a couple of things.
Nancy, can you state your address, please?
Excuse me?
Can you state your address, please?
11927 Northeast 6th Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing Gianno said. You're probably referring to me when you're talking about somebody who said that their property was hit by a car. I've had that happen more than once. The first time I actually had somebody slam into my house from across the street. And the second time I was very lucky. They only slammed into my bushes in the front of my house from across the street. I haven't heard anybody make any mention whatsoever of safety of people who actually live on the street or their homes. I've heard you talking about safety with cars, and you know, if I've had cars running into all the way into my house. So I don't think somebody's going to be able to redirect themselves, particularly if all of the landscaping that I have in front of my house is taken away by a 6-foot wide sidewalk. So there's that issue. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous, I'm really upset, and I'm having trouble focusing now. So.
Ms. Davis, if I could, just as a clarification, it's not only the 6-foot sidewalk, the sidewalk is being pushed as far away from the travel lane as possible. So it's the 6-foot sidewalk plus the 3 to 4 foot landscape strip that they're going to leave in between. So the footprint of the impact is roughly about 10 feet into the property.
It's the same though as it is now, because where my bushes are planted, they are planted at the property line. Mm-hmm. So where my bushes were hit, the time the bushes were hit, somebody came from across the street through the median and rammed into my bushes. So that was more than 10 feet. Now, the time that my house was hit, clearly the person came swinging southbound from across the street and swerved, luckily in a way, I guess for them, straight up my driveway and slammed into my carport. So it's very hard for me to understand how anybody can say that what they are proposing would be safer for me or for any pedestrian, because if there had been a pedestrian or an animal in front of my house at those two times, they would be dead. So I'm just stating that, you know, the safety, I understand they're talking about the safety of pedestrians and whatever, but I feel like I deserve to be considered for safety. And I feel that my house should be considered for safety.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. We appreciate your comments. Next, I have a Patricia Gonzalez.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Gonzalez. I live on 11901 Northeast 6th Avenue. I have been a resident of Biscayne Park since January 2008. Nancy was talking about the safety. I live on the northeast corner house of 119th and 6th Avenue. My house has been impacted several times, not only once, twice, 3 times, cars driving into my house. And luckily, two of the times, a tree stopped the cars. The other time, the car went through and ended up in my neighbor's house. And I have seen numerous accidents on that corner, and I think that's the lack of visibility. And when I moved into the park, the speed limit was was enforced. And I think since then, since 2008, 2010, 2014, the speed limit has increased tremendously. So I've seen cars driving 60, 70 miles an hour. So I think for the safety of us, obviously the speed limit has to be enforced going back to 30 miles an hour. The city of FDOT has resurfaced the road twice since I lived in the property. So all the water that drains and goes all the way from the north side of 6th Avenue going down on 119th, it drains into my house. And I think I'm the one that is most impacted by the flooding in that area. I haven't seen any drainage for 3 or 4 houses north of my house. So, I mean, I have a couple of months ago, I have like 5 inches going into my garage. So every time there is heavy rain, I get all the water going onto my garage. So for me, obviously, I'm pro the project because there's going to be more drainage. There's going to be more safety. I have sent a video to Commissioner Mac McDonald showing a gentleman that was walking down the road on 6th Avenue a couple of days ago. He almost tripped because all the areas are so uneven and the routes, and people have to walk on the street and everything. So to be a little bit safe. I feel threatened every time I go on the front of the house. I mean, my dog got killed because she escaped from the house, but got killed by a car that was over speeding. So I think this is a great project, and I go for it for the safety of the residents on 6th Avenue. And I'm a great believer that, I mean, if we lower the speed limit, there will be more safety in the area. I also pushed a lot to have a traffic light. Obviously, since that study was done, there's a lot of more traffic. And if the police can give a report of that most of the accidents are on that corner of 119th and 6th Avenue, I think FDOT will probably reconsider putting a traffic light in there just to slow down the traffic a little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. We appreciate your feedback as well. Next, I have a Rodolfo Barrientos.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rodolfo Barrientos. I live in 11801 Northeast 6th Avenue. I've been living there for 26 years or more. Obviously, in all these years, I have not seen heavy traffic, foot traffic or anybody walking on 6th Avenue that can really warrant a sidewalk. But, with that aside, I think that's going to impact dramatically to all us residents of 6th Avenue. There are a couple of things that, this project it came out of nowhere because we came to find out in 2018 and nobody ever, told us anything about it or asked us if we wanted any sidewalks back in the days. So obviously that was a decision made by somebody else who probably had a different type of a plan for us. Another thing that I like to mention the inconsistencies of the plan. When they talk about continuous look from Miami Shores to North Miami, I don't know what they're talking about because Miami Shores has its own type of lights all the way to 109th Street, if I'm not mistaken. From then on to the bridge, we have those ugly lights that are commercial, and I don't see that as a continuity from Miami Shores to North Miami, And ironically, our missing lights, the ones that they cannot replace, they cannot find, or we have to pay for it. They just got replaced, a whole bunch of them, and I don't see why. But anyways, besides that, another thing that I like to mention is they mentioned visual obstruction due to landscaping. I think Biscayne Park has taken care of that already. A lot of residents are forced to trim their foliage, according to the view to the street. So that's kind of weak on their plan. Another thing is the repaving. Repaving, we're going to have patches all over 6th Avenue. Guess what? Potential for potholes. Lack of maintenance. The workmanship nowadays is so poor that in about 2 years, if we do get those sidewalks, in about 2 years, we'll be patching holes on 6th Avenue, right? Another thing that I'd like to mention is that all the foliage, all those trees that will be affected by the sidewalks, they're gonna work on the roots. I don't know if anybody realizes or has a logical mind, but eventually those roots are gonna recover. And when they recover, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna pack up the sidewalk. They're gonna lift up the pieces of the sidewalk, and then we have a potential for a lawsuit. Here you go. No, I just like to mention that I'm totally opposed to the sidewalks, especially for me. My front yard is about 2 feet higher than the level of 6th Avenue. If they ever put those sidewalks, it's going to cost me at least $30,000 to $40,000 to redo all that front and level it to that level so I can have a place to park. Okay, right now I have a place to park. And with all that, I think, I'm not the only one that is upset that we're on a plan that we didn't even ask, and they're trying to force it on us somehow. And I believe, and I urge our commissioners and the administration to look into the small details to see that what kind of an impact will have those sidewalks on 6th Avenue and the village on itself. Our character is different, we are proud of the way our village looks, and most of us don't want to change. With that, I think I'm finished. I'm pretty much on tune with that. And again, I want to reinforce that I'm opposed to the sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list, I have a Danielle Carbonera.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I was listening. I was watching the new presentation. It's a little bit sad and disappointing after all this meeting in almost 1 year and a half. Nothing can be changed and nothing has been considered. Just
Sir,
we
I'm
received.
sorry, can you give us your address, please?
Yeah, 12001 Northeast 6th Avenue.
Thank you.
Nothing has been considered, nothing really changed, just we receive a new graphic and trying to put new supporting argument why is so intrusive, aggressive project. Because at the end, we always ask what was the pedestrian study in order to add the sidewalk. This has never been supported. And today is just a mandatory part of the project. So this is already one of the killing point about this project. And I don't think also we see the logic behind to have a kind of secondary US1 passing now in 6th Avenue, so we can have a fast connection as has been declared between Miami Shore and North Miami. So this also will affect all the area as also all the village, as the beauty of village will be destroyed, will become an extension of North Miami practically. And I don't see the advantage of all these works, besides also to be destroying part of the landscaping all this village has. I talk clearly against this project. I prefer take the chance to have 5 or 10 years and have a proper one, maybe with a reduction of line, with the bike line, but something more proper for this space, this jewel is village, Biscayne Park Village. And I believe also there is another project in the line of the FDOT about Dixie Avenue. So if this is happening, maybe all the traffic will be deviated and there will be not this need to have the fast track to the 6th Avenue across the village park. So I prefer vote no and not have this kind of massive project destroying the line and the property.
Thank you so much, sir, for your feedback. I have a phone number and then I will have Mr. Goldman. Ask him to unmute. If you can just state your name and phone number, I mean, not phone number, it's showing your name and address for the record, please. Oh, did she freeze?
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Okay.
It's me. It's my turn?
Yes.
Okay, hi. My name is Maha Quad. My address 610 Northeast 121 Street. After I heard everyone live in 6th Avenue, thank God, especially Nancy Davis, I have the same concern. 10 years ago, I had a police chase and they ended up in my driveway damaging my fence and my bushes. And now I confirm I am against sidewalk. I've been living here over 27 years. I don't see any need for sidewalk. We have so much problem drainage, and look at the road. The road is so needed, renew, but not sidewalk. Is gonna bring more people, who's gonna clean? Who's gonna take care of it? I am against it. Please, I vote for now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I have a Mr. Howard, then a Mr. Alba, and then Mr. Lindbaker. Oh, I just muted you. I'm sorry, Mr. Golden. There we go. Okay.
It's okay, Mario. Well, thank you everybody for giving me a moment to speak. My name is Howard Goldman. My wife Liz here with me. Our address is 11950 Northeast 6th Avenue. We are on the west side of the street. And I thought I'd start out with a picture says 1,000 words. Now, keep in mind, we are on the west side of the street of 6th Avenue. Our pitch of our driveway is west to east downward towards 6th Avenue. And this, if you can see, is what our driveway looked like back in May, the end of May last year. It has never been like that before. And as we all know with global warming, it's only going to get worse. So unfortunately, I don't have the 6th Avenue image to show you. I was looking for it, but we were literally 6 inches underwater in the driveway. I've never seen that before. And I bought the house in 2005. Few points. Well, firstly, just so you know who I am, and when all this had started, and as Daniela had said, we'd learned about this project in 2018, and I know that it's got a history going back much further than that with the commission and city managers and mayors, I'm not sure of which who, had started this project and asking FDOT to come in and get us sidewalks and drainage. We started the 6th Avenue Coalition and began a WhatsApp chat, and then we were able to all do a Zoom call together on a few occasions so that we could all speak amongst ourselves before going to FDOT and to the commission. So we had some sort of unity amongst us. I'm now speaking for myself simply because we haven't had a chance to do a Zoom call with the group. One of the gentlemen had said a few moments ago about the continuity. I think it was, I can't remember who it was right now, but there was the continuity of the lighting. And if I'm not mistaken, that area just south of the bridge to where the shopping centers on the west side start, that's that small patch of, is it Dade County or City of Miami that belongs to, where they were showing those lights, which are the taller lights that were supposed to be shown as continuous, but it really is not, because that's the small patch of Dade County land that, unincorporated Dade, that's right, that is between Miami Shores and us. And then again, to another point that was made with the lights that are on 6th Avenue presently that had just been added with continuity to the existing lights that were there, these wonderful looking lamps that need some adjustments because they all need heads on them to stop the flare into us, into our yards, both on the front side and the back side. Those are going to be necessary. Thanks for sharing that image as well of 6th Avenue. That's great. I'll go on with a few other things as well. One point that was made about flashing lights for the crosswalk that's going to be there. If you've all seen those lights, they do a great job on a busy, hustling Biscayne Boulevard with storefronts and well-lit street for businesses. But in a residential area like ours, to have those flashing lights going off and triggered in the middle of the evening, that's going to cause quite a lot of light flashing and disturbance going, and hopefully they can mute that if in fact this project does go through, which I am completely opposed to, and I'll explain in a moment.
Mr. Coleman, just in case I didn't make myself clear, they're not providing any flashing lights for mid-block crosswalks.
Oh, okay.
What I had mentioned was an example where they have done that elsewhere in the county. I just want to make sure we understand that this is not part of the project. The only thing that they are proposing are feedback signs, which has a radar, sort of when a vehicle approaches, it basically tells them what speed they're going at.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. The other thing is as you think about putting those bright lights in along 6th Avenue and widening the perspective of view for a driver barreling down 6th Avenue, that's going to do the opposite from a safety standpoint. That's going to make someone feel a little bit more comfortable to speed rather than to slow down because they've got a greater visual perspective. So that's not going to work in our favor in terms of safety at all. So as Mac had mentioned, without having a buffering of curbs or something of that nature, this is going to work completely against what they propose is going to be helpful to us from a safety standpoint. The bottom line for me, what I sense out of all of this is it's come to the point for FDOT where they're throwing their arms up and they feel that from their perspective that we don't have our act together. The different commissions have come in and changed their tune and all of that. But as you can see from the time that you've been spending experiencing and listening to people, we are now coming to a point where we are all given information to help make an educated choice. So I understand FDOT's position. They're done with us and say, look, take it or leave it. We're out of here. And I think I will take a guess here and say that a good majority of us would love to have so much of everything that they're offering, but with some changes to be made. And all they're saying is then you got to pay for those changes
when in fact they spent a lot of money on those light additions here just within the last couple of years. And they're ready to tear all those down just to put these ugly things up. Sounds to me there's a little bit of spite going on in there, and political spite. So I vote, and I'm completely opposed to this project. And I hope my other residents and neighbors along 6th Avenue join me in passing it up and letting a new blood come in, so that over in the next 10 years, they look at this and they go, man, we almost blew it. We almost put in the wrong kind of a thing. It was the right idea, but wrong execution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I have Mr. Manuel Alba. No, your sound's not coming through. No. Why don't we move on to someone and kind of circle back, see if we can get, you might want to try to scroll, if you're on a mobile device, to the left, there might be a button there. Next is Michael Lindbaker.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Lindbaker. I live on 11940 Northeast 6th Avenue. Where do I start? Basically, I feel this project is a safety project. First thing, you know, the reason I'm in favor of this project is because I just want to be able to walk on 6th Avenue. That's all I want. You know, right now, I don't think anybody here can say that it's safe to walk on 6th Avenue. And the main issue, in my opinion, is the encroachment issues. I feel for Ms. Davis and Patricia because I live close to them, and I've seen some of these accidents. We just had one about a month ago in the early Sunday morning. But in my opinion, these accidents are happening because of the poor visibility of the cars coming in and out of the side streets from 6th Avenue. The visibility is poor, you can't see it. So when a car is coming up north or south of 6th Avenue and a car is crossing and the person is making a adjustment and end up going into somebody's yard, you know. As far as if some of the arguments, you know, people are saying, oh, the sidewalk is not going to fix any of that, you know. I challenge that. I think it's exactly opposite, you know. There are studies done on that. We can look at the actual study to see if this is true or not. But in my opinion, when you can see pedestrians walking around, you will slow down naturally. But we can look at the professionals to say otherwise, you know. Don't take my word for it. I'm going to be brief today. What I'm going to do later on, I'm going to write a letter to each commissioner in detail with all these arguments, pros and cons. But me, myself, I'm not willing to wait 10 years to get it done perfectly. Because right now, the flood is happening right now. Cars are crashing right now. People can't walk on 6th Avenue right now. So we either do this now imperfectly. I also agree that the lights that they're proposing is not a pretty light, you know, but what we have right now is also not pretty because some of them are silver, some of them are blacks, some have lights burnt out. So what's the point? So might as well do everything again. It's not going to be the perfect thing, but we're going to have something done, you know, in this decade, you know. So I urge the commissioners to vote yes. But if you must vote no, I urge them to take the encroachment issues seriously, because that's affecting the life of, you know, Ms. Davis, Patricia, and myself, and my neighbor. She got a hit and run last year with a car that hit her yard. So these things have to be fixed, regardless if you like the sidewalk or not, the type of lights they want, you know, all this other stuff. But the main thing is the safety of the residents and their house, like Miss Davis, and the people walking. Everyone should be feeling safe around 6th Avenue. And right now it's not, period. Nobody here can say otherwise. So we either accept an imperfect plan, or we're gonna sit here and wait 10 years and nothing's gonna get done, nothing. You know, the chances of us revisiting this in the future, it's very slim. So I'm in favor for this project. That's it for me now. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. Mr. Manuel, I think we got you back on. Can we unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. My name is Manuela Alba. I live in 615 Northeast 115 Street. Okay, about this presentation, with all the respect for the commissioners, Mario and Jano that did the presentation, I think this was not a good presentation because we need someone that comes here with the answers. For many of the answers that Commissioner Kennedy did, the answer, most of the questions, most of the answers, he doesn't have an idea. He needs to consult with the designer. The design is very inconsistent, okay? I don't see any real study with the numbers because studies are done with the numbers about the safety for the people, the additional safety for the people, because if you create sidewalks, eventually more people will use it. Maybe no one is using it now because there is no safe. But if you are creating something to add safety, and you don't come with a study, and also you don't have a study about the design, how it will look like, how the sidewalk will meet with the driveways, okay? It should be consistent with all the houses and all the streets. I don't know, you need to come with the designer, with the engineer, someone that can answer all the questions. No questions should remain without an answer. Also, we don't have a flooding study. You can see I showed before a picture about all the flooding that happens on 115th Street. 115th Street and 114 are one of the worst. Even with the small rain, all that street floods, not only with the rain from 115th Street, also with all the rain that comes from the Northeast 6th Avenue. Then if we add more concrete and on the sidewalks, I don't know how the flooding will be. Also, if you add on the project, I have seen around 2 or 3 storm drains. I don't think it's enough. It's enough, and you need to come with a real study about the flooding. Also about the sidewalk and the grass. Jan say in the presentation that is 10 feet. I have here on my survey that the right of way has 9 feet. So I don't know how that's much if you will make, okay, the sidewalk 6 feet, and then you will reduce the grass to meet what I have on my survey. I don't have 10 feet. I have 9 feet on my survey. So I need to know what is the answer to that. Also, I think this project, the way it was presented, is only to meet a budget that I think I have seen on a presentation. I think is 2.8 million. It's only a project to meet a budget. It's not a project to meet the needs and what the resident of Biscayne Park wants. Okay, I would prefer to say no to this project, and then if that will take later 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I don't care. What I think residents want is something that looks good. Okay, we don't want an I-95 street with all those lights and all the cars speeding along the way just to make happy someone or some people to say, okay, we have a connection between Miami Church and North Miami through Biscayne Park. At least the minimum that I consider that would be good, and I told Kennedy about that, will be the sidewalk with the cars to add additional protection and with our decorative lights. I don't understand why we cannot reuse what we can have now. Those are, some are new, some are old, some are yellow, some are white, but are better than what this project is proposing. Okay.
I do want to clarify, this is not a project that neither I or Giano have created. This is a project that DOT created, and the information that we have is just what they provided to us. We don't have the studies because they didn't give us the studies. We don't have the calculations because they didn't give us the calculations. So we took all the information that they did share and what they did provide at their public meetings and then on conversations with us, and that is what we're presenting to you. At no point did we create the project, did we design it, did we talk about the sidewalks. That is all DOT. That has nothing to do with Giano or with this administration. We're just trying to get to a point where we, as a community, make a decision and decide to go, as opposed to just keeping a project kind of up in the air and it keeps coming back around and we keep having the same discussion over and over again. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that it's not something that neither of us are working on. We're presenting what somebody else did from a different agency. Okay.
So I think this project is very inconsistent and very immature project. The designer and the engineer from the project need to sit with our planning and zoning department and our building department and write down a good project with all the thing that needs to be consistent. We cannot have a sidewalk that meet a driveway in certain way and then in the next house in another way. Okay, let's do it like this because this is the easiest way to do it. No, we need to sit down because this is a project that will last for 100 years, 200 years, and forever. We cannot change what have been done later. And then we need to sit with every resident because I have 9 feet right away. The other resident maybe have 10. The other resident maybe have 8 because of the our village is like that. Okay, so the project we need to come with a better project for us. Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Manager, just to make a clarification, for those of you that got here after we started, we do not represent DOT. We are here on your behalf. We're simply just communicating to you and providing some clarification on what DOT is proposing in your village. These are not our design proposals and these are not our recommendations. More specific to the right-of-way, there is some variations in the right-of-way. I'd said 10 feet, but it varies between 8.5 and 10 feet. And just for clarification, the one thing that fluctuates is that green strip of sod area that they're going to be putting between the travel lane and the sidewalk. In their plans, the sidewalks are going to be 6 foot wide, consistent. Okay.
And, next, I have Mr. David Raymond.
Yes. Hi, good evening, everybody. David Raymond, 11520 Northeast 9th Avenue. So obviously I don't live on 6th Avenue, and I really do believe that the main weigh-in on this project should be up to the residents of 6th Avenue. With that said, that's not going to stop me from opening my big mouth. I think that process-wise, this was handled incorrectly from the start. And I believe that the last speaker, Mr. Alba, I think raised a very good, valid point here about not having FDOT on for tonight's meeting. And I'm not saying you didn't do a good job of presenting this. I think that the presentation was fine because it seems like we're going to get what we're going to get. So I don't know if the folks from FDOT were being disingenuous when they met with us and said, we're going to consider this and you could submit this study and that study and see about the lanes. But what I heard from the last group of 6th Avenue residents, the consensus seemed to be then that they would have been okay with this had we had one lane in each direction, bike lanes, and the sidewalks out. I don't know what the view is now, but from everything I've heard and seen, and with the accidents that are going on, I think that not putting curbs, if you're going to put a sidewalk in, not putting curbs along them and elevating the sidewalk to stop cars from coming and hitting pedestrians or running into somebody's house is just irresponsible. I also think that if the commission does vote to do this, they should commit to the lighting portion, because those other lights are really awful. And I won't want to, if I lived on 6th, I wouldn't want them shining in on me. And the last thing I'll say is that, you know, we live in a very unique place. Our tree canopy is something that's to be treasured. We have a little microcosm here in terms of our climate. You actually have a little microclimate in here. And when you add all of that concrete, all the cement that you're going to be pouring into the sidewalks, that's going to increase the heat index on 6th Avenue. I can tell you that from, you know, having nice bright white sidewalks reflecting into people's houses. So I just think that all should be taken into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Barbara Watts, and then Mr. Anderson, then Oliva, then Catherine. Ask Ms. Watts. Are you there, Ms. Watts? Oh, there you go.
Ms. Watts, you're muted. You need to unmute.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm sorry, I was cooking potatoes. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I thank you for the presentation. However, Mr. Fiole, is that, I think there's one problem with it. And first, before I begin, I'd just like to say, as much as I like my neighbors on 6th Avenue, the ones I know, and I'm gonna have to agree and disagree with them, and I think we should just, I have to quote Nancy Reagan, who's been in the news lately, just say no. This is a project that, you know, FPNL is not going to, or FDOT is not going to offer us anything that we talked about the last meeting. And it's a matter of money. And it will, I think, really hurt 6th Avenue and the life of the residents who live there. First, you know, Patricia wants a speed change and you know, more drainage because of flooding. But according to your presentation, one, speed change is impossible. We have no control over that. And the drainage is only to take up for the fact of the sidewalks. It's not going to take up, it's not going to compensate for the problems that we have on our own. It will just mitigate the problem caused by more concrete because of the sidewalks. So, you know, those are two things that you could say are positives with this project, but in fact, they're not. All right. And then I think that there was a lot of talk on Nextdoor about how, oh, 6th Avenue is where people drive through and they'll get their first impression of Biscayne Park, and wouldn't it be nice if we have sidewalks? Well, I think that the first impression is of a beautiful avenue with leafy trees going down, and people don't even think about the sidewalks. And that when then later people drive down Biscayne Park, about 6th Avenue, they're going to see a patchwork of different colors of concrete, more concrete, less foliage, and the general appeal will, the effect will be more negative than it is today, because we see beautiful houses and landscaped driveways and swales and such like that. That's one problem I found with the presentation. We only saw the changes with the sidewalks, these reconstructions or new, you know, computer, constructions of what things will look like, but without the houses. We need a before and after, what it looks like now and what it'll look like after all of the foliage is taken down and the trees that have roots are destroyed. Okay. The only reason for 10-foot sidewalks is because FDOT doesn't want to move the FPNL poles. Okay, it's just a matter of money. So that's why we have to have these huge sidewalks, or maybe it's 6 feet and 4 feet for the grass, but to get somebody with a wheelchair or something around it is still going to be a problem. So that won't be solved. The lighting is not friendly to residents nor to birds. Okay, so that's a no-brainer, no. And so I really think that, again, and I don't think that, as Nancy said, the fact that we have a sidewalk, if we don't have curbs or barriers, it's not going to stop people from driving into people's yards and sidewalks. And it will create more an illusion of more concrete that could suggest that people will drive more quickly. So I don't necessarily think, I agree with some of you, that it's going to be create a calming issue for the speeders on 6th Avenue. And one thing I think that 1 and 2, you know, the way to take care of our drainage problems and all of that, there are going to be more projects, more grants for which to apply that aren't sponsored by FDOT in the next 5 to 10 years. This is a global problem. The Biden administration is addressing infrastructure. There'll be more possibilities for us to address drainage in Biscayne Park. So this isn't an all or nothing type of opportunity. So I think with these are, and then also there's a possibility, again, if we could find a grant, it's very difficult because we are not a challenged community, but to find a grant that would allow us to have those quiet crosswalks like they have in certain areas of Fort Lauderdale, where the lights are on the ground instead of these big flashing lights. There are ways, there are other solutions. So I don't think we should jump at this opportunity just because the money is before us, because we're not, everything we disagreed with 3 or 4 months ago, we're getting the same package presented to us now. So I think we should just walk away and wait for something better and work for something better rather than to accept this unacceptable proposal. All right, enough said.
Thank you for your feedback. Mr. Anderson. Yep.
Yes. One of the things that, am I unmuted?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, one of the things that they're talking, FDOT is talking about, of course, is having, better transportation. And this includes, your bicycle and bus routes. Well, one of the things on the crosswalks, we have 2 bus stops. Yes, we do have a bus stop near 113th, but we also have bus stops up there near 121st. No way of crossing 6th Avenue safely for that bus stop. So what FDOT is saying, to safely cross, you have to walk all the way through Biscayne Park and cross the street. I think they're missing the point completely on crosswalks. We have been trying for years to have crosswalks. Also too, on the lighting. Okay, Miami Shores actually has really nice looking lighting. Soon as going north, soon as you hit the unincorporated area, they have this industrial lighting, and they're asking us to accept this industrial lighting. Years ago, the type of lighting we have now, Biscayne Park really lobbied hard to have the kind of lighting we have now. And it should not be uprooted away from us unless we spend close to $500,000 to go ahead and have nice lighting back in. This whole project, years ago, you happen to have one commissioner listen to a couple of residents and the manager, conceived this whole project, worked with FDOT. After it was almost mature, finished, they sprung it on the commission at the last minute without the residents knowing anything about it. I think this is a very ill-conceived project where the residents weren't involved, especially the ones on 6th Avenue. This is something I think we should take a pass on, educate ourselves a little bit more what's needed, and years later, we can go ahead and maybe come back on this, or what Barbara Watts said, right now, there's certain things in the Biden administration. They're trying to improve infrastructure. We may be able to take a bite on this a little bit sooner, but I think right now we should take a pass on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your feedback. Next, I have Mr. Oliva, then Catherine, then MM. Mr. Oliva.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mike Oliva, 590 Northeast 121st Street, right on the corner of 6th Avenue and 121st. And I actually have one of those bus stops Mr. Anderson was talking about in my yard or my swale. So I thank him for mentioning that. I will keep my comments very brief. I'll come out first and foremost to say that I am opposed to this project. I had originally had some consideration for it. Going into the last meeting with FDOT, I was happy to hear that they struck a conciliatory tone and suggested they would listen to some of our opinions and go back and review, and was wildly disappointed tonight to come in and see that they rejected absolutely everything that we asked them about and basically have re-presented the exact same proposal to us again. That is the sort of take it or leave it attitude that they've taken, I think, is deplorable. And I will be speaking to both Jason Pizzo and Dottie Joseph, who are our representatives, about that, and make sure that they give that feedback to FDOT, that this is an inappropriate way to deal with a small village of our size, our type. That's really all I have to say. Thank you very much. Again, I oppose this project.
Thank you, sir. Miss Catherine Van, I can't see the whole name, so
Van Hoogland. Hi.
Sorry.
I've actually born and raised here for now going on 29 years. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents who aren't here at the moment. I just want to read my little excerpt and then pass it to my boyfriend, who has a little more put together words. This sidewalk isn't for BP. It's for everyone else, not including the actual residents. FDOT doesn't know what Biscayne Park residents need. This area doesn't need more construction. It needs more trees and space for people to live and enjoy nature, because we are a bird sanctuary. This would be harmful for the birds and now foxes that we have living in our neighborhood. The lights can disturb these things, as well as destroying their homes, which these 6th Ave residents have built with their trees blocking their house. Did you guys move here for the city, or did you move here to have a little village? Here's my boyfriend.
Hi, everyone. I don't think Catherine gave the address. It's 760 Northeast 114th Street. My name is Daniel Frederick. I am a new Biscayne Park resident. However, I was born and raised in Miami Shores. Outside of a few years that I spent at the University of Florida, I have lived in this area my entire life. I've had the pleasure of going to Biscayne Park, the summer camp. As a kid, I have many friends in Biscayne Park whose parents have lived there, whose parents have lived here. There's even an individual on this call right now who I'm very good friends with their son. At the end of the day, I'm left asking, who is this project for? It doesn't address any of the needs that Biscayne Park has. Does it address current flooding? No. Does it cause people to drive appropriate speed limit? No. Does it protect pedestrians if they were to build the sidewalk? No. So who is it really for at the end of the day? It kind of seems like it's for a single ex-commissioner, right? So it's for one person who asked, and from what it sounds like, it was done for the most part behind doors, behind feedback, and even when feedback is requested, they don't take any of it. So at the end of the day, who is it for? It's for one ex-commissioner, and then it seems like it just checks off a bunch of check marks for FDOT. And so at the end of the day, I think Catherine said it one way, but I'm left wondering the same thing, is there's a certain feel when it comes to Biscayne Park. There's a certain feel, and you feel it the second you enter it, whether it's on 6th Ave, whether it's on some of the side streets. And I think Mr. Giano said it best. He admitted that this is going to change the feel of the village. And so I ask everyone, why are you in Biscayne Park? Is it not for the feel? Is it not to be away from what's everywhere else in Miami? And so on behalf of myself, Catherine, and then her parents as well, we are opposed to this.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I have M.
Hello, I'm Maria Sanchez. My phone won't let me come off of on camera, but so I apologize. And I'm a little bit late because I have 2 young kids. I think I asked for my comments to be read into the record just in case, but I am Maria Sanchez. I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband, David Sanchez. We are 11505 6th Avenue. We are opposed to the 6th Avenue project. We were part of the initial FDOT conversation where we proposed compromises with FDOT that included sidewalks and drainage, but increase in green space. And it sounds to me like we're not getting that. It doesn't look like they made compromises to their plan to me. So, you know, I'm not opposed to making 6th Avenue more walkable. My recommendation would be that it's budget neutral and it's green, it's not concrete. Mandate 10 feet of cleared green space in the swales for people to walk on, but don't pour concrete. If you drive anywhere around this area in North Miami, in Miami Shores down 6th Avenue, they're ill-maintained, they're discolored. Residents of Miami Shores complain about broken and cracked sidewalks and the danger it poses to residents who walk on it. You know, besides the personal impact to me and my property, I have a mature oak tree in front of my house that they're proposing putting one of these commercial lights right in front of. I just don't think it fits with the village. I would rather see us provide green space that is walkable and is welcoming to people and is inviting and doesn't disrupt our current ecosystem without the sidewalks. I live next to one of the low spots on 6th Avenue that has drainage issues. I'm not opposed to addressing that, but I don't see that being tackled in here. So, you know, my vote was against it before this. We were hoping to compromise with FDOT. I don't see that here. So my vote remains to oppose the plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. I have a Lorraine and then a Michael.
It's actually Lori.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lori.
Sorry. Lori Mertes, I'm at 741 Northeast 114th Street. I moved to Biscayne Park and bought property here in 2017 after having been away from Miami for years, but having lived in Coral Gables and also Bay Harbor Islands. And I really chose Biscayne Park very intentionally for what it is. And I think that the last couple of speakers have really embraced that. I really think that it is worth returning to the question that was dismissed in terms of Mr. Fioli discussed about the lanes, and David Raymond brought up, and reducing the number of lanes. If it means there needs to be another study, I feel like all of the concerns, both pros and cons here expressed tonight in terms of safety, both for residents of 6th Avenue, but also for all of the needs expressed, you know, in terms of the runoff and the water, and the need for safety and sidewalks, the need to slow down the speed. 6th Avenue is terrifying. I'm a cyclist and I won't bike in my own neighborhood because of that. And I lived in a very bike-friendly cities while I was away from Miami. And so it's really sad because I thought I'd found the right neighborhood for that kind of quality of life. If we're a village, we should look like a village. We should have a lower speed limit. We should have that green space. I'm absolutely opposed to the plan as proposed, but I do think it's absolutely worth pursuing the question over why can't we look at reduction of lanes. I know that's not FDOT's interest as a throughway, but in terms of safety, resident safety of their property, in terms of anyone's safety as a pedestrian or cyclist, none of those things are going to get answered by postponing this. And if there's an opportunity and a window, why not take it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Michael?
Yes, hello everyone, and hello to all my fellow friends and neighbors for here tonight. I just wanted to mention that to me, I have a real disconnect with the original objective of this project. It's not clear who started it, the reasons for it, but it's clear today that everyone here voicing themselves have two particular, or at least a few particular objectives that have not been addressed with this project, or at least we have no proof that even if this project goes through, it will be addressed. It seems that safety of the people in the neighborhood, either walking around or the cars, pedestrians, there's no guarantee that this project will provide any safety. I've heard arguments for or after, and I would like to see information that would say either way or not. In terms of safety of property, issues with water floods, it seems again that the sidewalks will not answer that problem. And even without the sidewalks, that there still would be a problem. And I'm not sure that this project will address these issues. So in essence, it seems that the people here have not been heard, and I'm against this project because I think that a take it or leave it approach is not the way to go. And based on our prior meeting with FDOT, it seemed that we had an opportunity to discuss certain changes, but they're limited to a budget and there's no opportunity for changes. And aesthetic is also another issue that I think is a key issue, and the feel and touch of the village is very important, and this project obviously will not provide that. One particular thing that pertains to me, I don't know if I said where I'm resident, but I'm at 11816. And just to give you an idea of the actions of FDOT, I don't think anybody was put on notice of the new lampposts that were set up, but I happen to be one of the lucky residents that received 3 new lampposts, one in the smack middle of my property, one on the north end of my property, and one on the south end of my property. And it is a real nuisance in terms of the lighting that is projected into my home. I feel like there's a football stadium lighting. I sleep on the side of the street. I haven't seen any sleep lately. I'm thinking of changing my curtains, and I'm thinking that somebody voiced that there was potentially changes to the lamps, putting a protective guard to at least diminish the lighting, or at least have light bulbs that match the historical lightings, which were orange and a softer light, I think would be helpful for the people who actually live on the street. Although I am for lighting, I think I was in a spot where there wasn't lighting and it was very dark at night, so I'm for it. But again, I think what I'm voicing here is there's no opinion of the actual people who live here and listen to what their needs are. And from what Giano said early on, in his presentation, he mentioned that the only goal, or at least that's what I understood, was to create a pathway for people who are outside of the village to go from north to south and south to north to facilitate their needs and their objectives without taking into consideration the objectives of the people who reside here. So again, I voiced my opposition for this project.
Thank you. And I believe that I can see our final commenter, Ms. Reed, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, wait, I think it changed.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jenny Reed. Hi. I live at 820 Northeast 115th Street, so I am not a resident on 6th Avenue. I just wanted to say, I think an earlier comment by Daniele Carbonera, he used the word aggressive. And that just is a word that seems to really resonate with me regarding this project. Absolutely today, the moment you enter our village, even on 6th Avenue, you know instantly that you are within the character of our village. And it is a unique character and environment. And that is something that we will have to defend always, to not become just what everybody else looks like. And I think this is a real decision moment of us creeping into what every other part of Miami looks like. And so I think defending that character is real, and it's something that we have to be proactive about. We can't be reactive and just hope that somehow, because we like where we live, that it will retain that image. And so I think that that's worth fighting for. Secondly, for me, 6 feet sidewalks does not feel residential. I mean, that feels like an industrial, like walking down in downtown Miami, they have 6 feet sidewalks. And to have a 6 feet sidewalk to accommodate a pole, then doesn't mean you really have the heart and the interest of us as the primary objective. And that feels kind of sloppy, frankly. And so again, 6 feet sidewalks are in no way in keeping with us as a residential neighborhood. Drainage is a huge problem. I do live on 115th Street, so I do turn into, I think it was Manuel Alba's near your territory, and there's a huge freaking flood with the slightest amount of rain. And so there are existing real issues with 6th Avenue. And if the only drainage is intended to absorb that from an additional sidewalk, then it is insufficient and it will not address the needs that we have around that. And if anything, may further exacerbate them. So that I think is an issue. And I also think becoming more and more like the rest of the North Miami entrance into our little village, and that commercialized space as you exit going south out of our village, opening up with the proposed ways will only increase speeding. In no way do you have any visual indicator that this is a place where we are residents and we are a village and you need to slow down. And today's environment visually tells you you have entered a different part of Miami and you need to behave differently because you're here. And so with that, I will echo the sentiment of Barbara and say, just say no. I am not in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, 2 more hands up, and then we'll get into final comments by a couple of commissioners. I know that they wanted to let the residents speak first. Genesis, and then a final by Goldman. Genesis Troutman. You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to come on briefly because I was reviewing the plans, and I just wanted to say exactly what I felt based on the plans and based on what I've seen. And I think it's a good idea. It looks good to me. I hear the concern about the drainage, which is important, and I feel like it will be addressed. But based on the designs and sketches I've viewed, I think it's fine if they are abiding based on what the plans I've seen, and that's all I wanted to add to the comment.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman.
Hi, thanks again for giving me one more moment. I just really wanted to say how happy and proud I am to see that the 6th Avenue Coalition that Chuck and I were nervously trying to gather our neighbors about to speak up and voice our opinions, either for or against my own personal beliefs. It didn't matter. It was just a matter of everybody being able to speak up and be heard. And it grew to such a point where we have all of our surrounding neighbors voicing their opinions, which are very important, I think, for all of us, so that everybody in Biscayne Park can be heard, because it's not just 6th Avenue, it becomes 7th Avenue and 9th Avenue and 10th Avenue, and it becomes every other street in the village, which will become affected as population grows, cars grow, people are gonna find a way to get around traffic, and they're gonna wanna go in and out. They're gonna find different ways to do things in which we don't want to have them done to our village. And a big thank you as well to the commissioners who made sure to put it out there on either next door or on handing out flyers. This is something we started to do well over a year ago, handing out some flyers on 6th Avenue and Sweltering Sun. So I just want to say a big, big thank you to everybody for putting in the energy. It's exactly the opposite type of energy that I've experienced in the sentiment from what FDOT has shown us on this take it or leave it attitude. So again, thank you everybody. And Mario, you're doing a great job starting out now. Thank you for your time and energy that you've been putting into everything going on in the village.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. To wrap up some of the comments, I'm just going to go to see if there's any closing comments that our commission would like to say. I'll start with Mayor O'Halpin.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I would like to mention that none of the commissioners or the manager had anything to do with inviting FDOT in. So this is long before all of us. But I think that it was necessary to hear what 6th Avenue wants. And we certainly have heard that tonight. And have a very good evening. Thank you for participating. And I'm sure the commissioners will listen to 6th Avenue. Thank you.
Now, we do have comments that were submitted. We'll read those in, but I just want to make sure I go through the commission real quick in case anybody does sign off. Next, I will ask Commissioner Samir.
Oh, okay, you cut off there for a minute. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, especially the residents on 6th Avenue. I have handed out flyers just like Commissioner Kennedy has, and to get a survey on it. I believe that I'm really going to save my comments for the commission meeting because this was for the residents to speak. But I just want to thank everybody for coming. And I have listened to the 6th Avenue, and I have heard you. And so it makes my decision after I do some more research on it easy to come to. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez, did all your questions get answered, or do you still have some?
No, I have. It went from 3 to 2. And Gianno, I don't know if you know the answer to this question or not, but most of the drainage that we currently have in this village are simply just holes in the ground that really go nowhere, right? So the question for the drainage on 6th Avenue, where is that going to be connected to something, or is that just another hole in the ground that's going to go nowhere?
No, from our understanding of the plans, what DOT is proposing is to provide some French drains. So they're essentially just collecting the water, shoving it down into the ground, and then allowing it to percolate unnaturally. And I think it's really important. A lot of what the residents have said is very true. The drainage the DOT is proposing is only incidental as a result of the sidewalks. They are not proposing to deal with any of your existing drainage issues. So I think it's important to just keep that in mind.
So the drainage situation is really not going to help us at all. And then my other question was the cost of lighting for the $400,000 additional. What they're telling us is that it's going to cost an additional $400,000 based on, because they have an investment in whatever lighting they were going to propose, right? So what they're saying is that on top of that, there's an additional $400,000, or are they just saying, you guys pay for it if you want to change it? Is that, do you know?
Their typical standards, Vice Mayor, is to have that Cobra lighting, which I call the highway or the commercial lighting. Any change from that for DOT is an additional cost, and they would put that on. Now, I have been arguing with DOT to the point that some of my colleagues professionally have asked me to calm down when I was yelling into the phone, that their reasons is basically, well, if we give everybody decorative lighting, it's going to be too expensive, so everybody pays for it themselves. My point was, that is a wonderful thing to do, except I currently have decorative lighting for the past decades, 50, 60 years in some cases, and now you're going to give me a subpar design, and so you're actually giving me less than what I currently have. It's not an apple-on-apple comparison with other cities. I got a little bit more vocal, and I don't think I presented it as nicely as I just did. But essentially that was DOT's comment. It was like, well, yeah, you kind of have a point, but it would be an additional $400,000 if you want to change it from the Cobra to anything else. And it's not to say that the teardrop doesn't look nice. However, it's also still the same size as those Cobra. It's not a shorter post that you're looking at. So you're still going to get the glow from the light to span across much more than just what we currently have now. And even now, those new ones is another fight that I'm blue in the face with, trying to assist. We were able to get some of those shields in place, but we're still fighting to change out the light bulb. And that's to a point where I'm almost ready just to do it myself and grab a ladder and try to see if I can do it. So we are continually working and trying to get FDOT to do the right thing.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hammerberg, did you have a comment or one? Oh, she's not there. She may have taken a quick break. Oh no, she is. Okay. I apologize.
All right. Yeah, I don't have anything additional to add. I'm very, very happy you guys got a 6th Avenue coalition together because we wanted to hear your opinions and we have heard you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy, before I read some of the emails that were sent over throughout the week, did you want to wrap up with any closing comments?
Yeah, let me just say a really quick thank you to everybody who put this together for us. And I know that Calvin Giordano worked very hard to make sure that they kind of brought it down to a level that we would understand, and they're very honest with us about what this would look like, and we appreciate that. It's a different spin on what we were told before. This felt very much more real to me, and I appreciate that. And thanks to all the residents for coming as well. I have to say that one of the things that I am noticing in this village over the past year or so is a dramatically increased level of engagement with residents in the projects that are taking place in the village. I think it's a wonderful thing. Every time we do things like this, I learn from residents, and I hear things for the first time, and it makes me think about things differently. It makes me a better commissioner. So thank you all very much for engaging in the level that you do. Thanks.
Thank you. And Roseanne, I'll start reading some of these, but if I do miss any of the emails, please feel free to jump in. One email that we received was from a Mr. Alexander Bernard. He says, "Dear Commissioners, I'll be working during the upcoming workshop, but must express my opinion against this project in its entirety. I believe that changing street lights to commercial grade is a non-starter. Converting all lamps to dark sky friendly LED would be fine, but isn't in any way a priority for our community. I also believe adding sidewalks is not a priority, especially given the amount of green space and landscaping that will be lost. We need less impermeable surfaces in the village, not more. I don't see anything at all wrong with the streets. I also got the impression that we can, in fact, reject the project in its entirety the last time we had a meeting, and if this is the case, we should. This whole project is a solution looking for a problem. It will cause unneeded disruption to our quiet village and create waste, noise, and inconvenience.
Hey, babe, this is wrapping up, and I'm going to make you dinner in 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Please reject it in its entirety. If it's possible, and it's not any element that does not increase the safety, beauty, inconvenience, or village. So everybody, we also know that dinner's at Commissioner Kennedy's house. The next one I have is from a Maria Milhalik. She says, "Thanks for sharing and making sure everyone is aware of this again. I am."
Mario, if you may, Maria Mihalik is the same as Maria Sanchez, and
okay.
She came in person.
Okay, even better. And the next email I have is from William Atkin. He says, "Thank you for all the, hi Mac, thank you for all the hard work and try to attend the virtual meeting. If I'm unable to attend, please feel free to forward and read out loud. We should not add sidewalks and the corresponding 20,000 square feet of concrete to the neighborhood. As a village, among our greatest strengths are our vegetation and wildlife. We should make every effort to preserve. Best, William." I also have our Parks and Parksway Advisory Board recently met this week, and they wanted to present their recommendation for the project. So I wanted to thank our chairwoman, Barbara Kuehl, and the board for having this discussion among themselves and coming up. Their comment was, "Dear Mayor and Commissioners, at our board meeting yesterday, which would have been Tuesday, we discussed the FDOT project and agreed to this recommendation. The residents who live on 6th Avenue should make the decision about accepting the proposal to install sidewalks. If the sidewalk project is approved, then we recommend requesting the width of the sidewalks of 6 feet to be reduced. With any sidewalk installation, FDOT should provide street trees to mitigate the barren look and heat gain from the concrete." Roseanne, was there any emails that I missed?
Yes, there is one from Mr. William Pierce. 650 Northeast 115th Street.
If you can read that, please.
Okay. Hi, Mac. Yes, this is what I would love to be read if possible and made public record. My name is William Pierce, and to be totally honest, I have some issues with the lighting on 6th Avenue that is being proposed. Actually, I'm totally against the bright white color temp lights that I see as an option. Don't do it, you will regret it. I feel that the color temperatures of those lights should stay warm and not the very cool white light. The white light is what you would see in a Walmart parking lot or in an industrial park. This totally takes away from the warmth of the village. As designer and a resident for 26 years that lives just off 6th Avenue on 115th Street, it would be terrible to come home every day to see those bright, cool white lights. Actually, it already is now with the few white lights I see. And please do not allow them to install those big, ugly light posts that all over the rest of the city of Miami. I'm sorry. Our village is so awesome because it's so different than the surrounding neighborhoods. Don't lose the character by installing those. I'm not against modernizing, upgrading, or growing with the times, but I'm against any of it happening at the detriment of those that live on 6th Avenue or any other village resident for that matter. Taking away that much property from houses on 6th Avenue is terrible, and I'm sure not what any of those homeowners expected to happen when they bought those houses. As for moving monies from one item to another, if they are planning on putting French drains for drainage, I would say that's a bad idea. They need to connect drainage to the city sewer because that's the only thing that will actually work. I don't believe French drains will work in this application. They will just get clogged up and never be cleaned. That's my thoughts on the projects. I've seen multiple families move in and out of the house on the corner of 6th and 115 Northeast corner, and nothing they do is stop the flooding up to that yard, and that's not the only place it happens. It happens in the village. Unfortunately, I have not been following every detail of this project as works doesn't allow me to. But from what I have read and heard, these are my comments to the project and the village. Thank you very much for reading these at the meeting. I will try and attend virtually, but may not be able. Be kind to each other and be safe. Your neighbor, William Pierce, 650 Northeast 115th Street.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we will call tonight's meeting. Please know that there will be an item on the May 4th agenda, the commission agenda, for discussion and a vote by the commission. If you'd like to comment again or provide any new comments for the commission, you may do so during the public comment at the commission meeting on May 4th. With that, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for the feedback. Please have a lovely evening, and we'll see you around town.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.